Welcome to Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa. Muy buenas tardes, ¿cómo estás, Valeria?
Muy bien, muy bien. ¿Y tú?
Ya no me dices y usted, gracias.
I had to think. I was like, no, sí tú. So, Mom and Dad, if you're watching this, I said usted. Okay?
Thank you. And especially because we're celebrating our 3rd anniversary, so when we're talking about years, we want to be conscious of how we refer to others. Yo sé que es de respeto en español, pero so we're celebrating our 3rd anniversary at Empodérate. I can't believe it's been 3 years already. And so, to commemorate this special episode, special anniversary, and a special guest, also celebrating her 3rd year as leader of Chicanos por la Causa, let us introduce, without further notice,
our president and CEO, Alicia Nuñez. How are you today? This isn't your first time on Empodérate or your second. Now it's going to be your 3rd time. So you're kind of our lucky charm, too.
Yes.
No. Wow, thank you. I'm honored.
That's the 3rd is the lucky number now. It's no longer 7.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here.
So what has happened in the last 3 years since you engaged? How does it feel to be leading one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the country now in your 3rd year?
Well, one, it feels like it just happened yesterday. Time flies so fast. I remember my first interview here. I was so nervous. I still get nervous, but not as much as I used to. It's really hard for me to talk about myself in front of camera and in front of people. But thanks to the team, I've been getting a lot of exposure, and it's allowed me to really, it's like you're on stage at all times, and as CEO, that's one of the things I've learned, that you have to be prepared to speak when given the opportunity, and there's been many opportunities. So in the past 3 years, that's one area that I'm really happy that I've been able to grow. I had an interview recently, and the reporter said, "You were very nervous when I first interviewed you." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" But yeah, it's so true. And I think I'm a little bit more comfortable speaking about the organization, which to me seems very natural because I can speak about the organization, but sometimes when you have to speak about yourself, it's a little bit intimidating. But very much appreciate being here and just being part of this amazing organization that I love dearly.
One of the stories that you had mentioned and we talked about is you being the first CEO, the first Latina CEO, the first woman CEO to lead an organization in over 55 years. Now you're closer to 60 now. But what does that mean? Sometimes we refer to titles as the first. And so I assume that you're being nervous. It was not only about being in front of the camera, but because of, the responsibility that carries being the first.
Yeah. So yes, first CEO of Chicanos por la Causa. And, I like to, I would joke, there's a hallway, and I think I shared that in the previous Empodérate episode, but there's a hallway in the main office that has sketch portraits of each CEO that has been, running the organization for the last, I think there's 7 portraits. We still need David on the wall. But I remember I used to walk down the hallway, and I'd look at all of the different portraits, and it was, all men. And each portrait depicts an area of focus or an area of growth that they had. And so, it was like, wow, these are very important individuals, right, that have been with the organization. I was lucky enough to meet all of them at some point. I remember we had a gathering, and, hearing the stories and hearing like the closeness that they each had to each other, but also to CPLC. And so, I would joke, and, when I tour or take people down the hallway into the office, I would joke and say, one day there's going to be a woman here, and then, just kind of laugh it off, but never did I realize that woman was going to be me, right? And so it's very meaningful. We have, throughout CPLC's history, we've had a lot of very strong women that have managed different areas of the organization. There's one in particular, Lorraine Lee, who had the title of president of Southern Arizona. And, she started some of the large programming in Southern Arizona, which We give credit to her for the schools along with Magda. So we started the charter schools, and we did a lot of programming, housing in southern Arizona. She passed away young. She passed away a few years after I started CPLC, but seeing her speak and seeing her passion just really impacted me. There's another person in particular, Terry Cruz, who, I worked with in the shared offices, and, she would show up in the office until her late 70s, fully dressed, ready to serve. And, she would come in the office, make coffee for everybody, and sit in an office and help whoever needed assistance there. That was her role, right? We respected that. And so for me, seeing the hard work that, I've only mentioned 2 women, but there's been many hundreds of women that have done and contributed a lot to CPLC. And so being able to represent them, being the first, but I'm the first of many that just didn't have the title, but they were dedicated to the work and just doing amazing things for the community. And they never thought about themselves. They thought about the community first. And so it's an honor to represent them and all of the other women that work for CPLC currently.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think something a little sweet or something special about CPLC is that the majority of the employees are women. I believe, might be wrong, like 75%, 80% are just women. I think that's kind of something very, very unique. And then now being led by a woman too is very, very cool.
Yeah. And some of other things have changed. When I first started, a lot of the management was all men. And that started changing throughout the years as well. And so it's great to see that women are, stepping up. Sometimes we're just afraid to step up. We may have everything that we need to in order to take on this additional responsibility. But a lot of times, we have young families, we're not able to travel or whatever the situation is, and we kind of pull back a little. But I think times have changed and women are really stepping up and, taking on these important roles as they should.
And sometimes that takes mentorship, and that's something that is very close that you've embraced and that you continue to share every opportunity. That we don't see that as such an important factor in developing our careers, and how mentorship has helped you.
Yes, I'd say that throughout the years, I don't think I could identify a mentor that I've had, but I've really picked up on just leadership qualities that I see in people that I really admire. And so I go out of my way to meet them, introduce myself to them. I really appreciate when I first stepped in as interim, I got a lot of calls from CEOs that I admired, but I'd never met, right? And, they just reached out to, check in, offer their, meet, and then offer whatever assistance I needed. I think for me that was very meaningful because they understand the importance of the organization. And, they're CEOs, right? So they know, there's different things and expectations as a CEO than a CFO or any other position. There's higher expectations. And so I think it was checking in. And for me, that was very important that they found time to reach out and just check in, offered, time to meet, and then extended themselves for any additional information or, questions I had or anything like that. They offered themselves for that. So I thought that was very good.
And it goes both ways, though, because I did want to mention that Abigail from ASU is here today.
She is here. And so Abigail reached out and asked, she's finishing up her doctorate and she needed hours with a mentor. And so she picked me and I'm like, me? So I was honored and, I asked questions like, well, what is it you need? She goes, I just need to meet with you. And so she's here in the room. She's over there. And so for me, it's exposing individuals to different things, right? And so this is I think, a key item of part of leadership and part of bringing others along. I think it's very important that other people see and engage with activities, right? This to me is an important activity, but in meetings and different things that I try to bring others along. I think that's very important for the women leaders out there, men as well, and making sure that, you're bringing others along and not just closing the door behind you. So I think that's very important.
And how important, I mean, touching on the importance of keeping the door open, kind of like that support that you have once you're starting your career or already have your career going. Because I feel like a lot of people focus a lot of like maybe like mentorship when you first start, but how important is mentorship once you're very well into your career?
Well, I think it's very, because I mean, I'm a learner. I love to learn new things. And so for me, it's, I learn things from people that I look up to, and then people that, I'm not saying I don't look up to them, but I'm just meeting for the first time, and they share interesting things about them, or I learn about, the work that they're doing. And for me, that's always very important to like continuous learning and building, skills, whatever that may be. I think it's very important throughout your journey and at every level of your career.
There's something very particular about your office that we wanted to bring up today.
Yeah.
And that's the Wonder Woman figurine.
Yes.
And we'll include some pictures, some videos of it so people will know what we're talking about. Tell us the story behind it.
Yeah. So when I first became CFO, I remember, I don't think I've shared the story, but I was offered the CFO position by David Adame when he first became CEO. And at CPLC, we manage a lot of federal contracts. And in order to be CFO for that for an organization that manages the amount of contracts that we do, the position, the CFO has to either have a CPA or an MBA. Mm-hmm. And I'm an English major, so I don't have either. I learned the accounting by doing the work in my past experience. And so I remember he gave me a call one day and said, you're the one. I want you to be the CFO. And I went through all of the reasons why I couldn't. I think I picked like 20 different reasons. But really, there was only one. And the one reason is I didn't have an MBA or a CPA. But that was fixable, right? I could go back to school, whatever. And so I remember he called me. He told me to think about it. Of course, I said no, and the reasons why. I came back. I was on vacation. I came back, and I called David. I said, you know what? I'm ready. I'm able to do this job. And then he's like, okay, we'll put a business plan together. So I did. And part of it, the plan was I need to go back to school and get my MBA. And so, I did. And that was part of the plan. I finished my MBA in about a year and a half. It was a lot of hard work. And, like everything, right? I think we tend to create doubt and, just create things in your mind that prevent you from doing bigger things, right? Because, it's just innate. I think for me, it's just in my nature, right? Like just being afraid. And so I remember I called a friend and I said, hey, there's this opportunity. And he's a really good friend. And I remember he said, you can do this. I mean, you're doing the work, And so I'm like, okay, oh, poor me. Anyways, I took the job. I signed up for school. And then maybe a week or two later, this person, my friend, showed up in my office. And he gave me a book. And I think it was the first 90 days in leadership. And then he gave me a little figurine, and it was a Wonder Woman. And and the card basically said you could do anything, right? You're like the Wonder Woman. And I remember he gave it to me. He says, don't tell anybody I gave you this. I'm like, all right. Of course I told everybody. But anyways, this Wonder Woman sits on my desk. And so I think people thought I collected Wonder Woman because then I got a mouse pad, Wonder Woman mouse pad. I've gotten other figurines. I've gotten a few artwork that hangs in my office. And so I just think it's great, right? That one, it's a reminder for me, but I indirectly, I think people keep giving me things to remind me, although they think they're just giving me things because I'm a collector. But to me, it's a great reminder that, you could be whatever Wonder Woman you choose to be. And I have one of the artwork that I have, it's a brown Wonder Woman. So it's very meaningful to me.
Yeah. What does leadership look like to you now? Has it changed from when you started 3 years ago as a CEO now? I mean, 3 years as a leader, not at CPLC.
The position is different. I see leadership the same, be authentic. For me, it's managing this organization we're a business, and so we have to be fiscally responsible to our funders. We have to be responsible to our community. Our community is our shareholders, right? So if you're looking at it as a for-profit business, we owe the community something, right? And so I take that very, very, it's very important to me. The difference as a CEO versus what I was doing before is, I talked about the interviews. That's something that I wasn't doing. I was very comfortable behind my computer. And so this completely threw me out of my comfort zone. And, I just realized that practice, right? I'm not saying makes perfect, but it helps. I travel a lot more than I did. And so, there's the balance, right? And I don't even know if you call it balancing, but it's balancing family time, personal time, and work, right? And so it's figuring out when you could do certain things that aren't impacting either, right? But it's managing through with my personal life, my family. They're very supportive. But what I've realized is you really need a strong support system at home. And you need a strong team in order to lead this organization. So it's, I'm still learning. I'm not saying that this is everything I've learned, but there's different things that I've realized as CEO. It's different. You get into meetings, people invite you because you have a title, right? That I thought that was very interesting. Interesting. Now that I have the title,
now they invite you to
now
the table.
I'm invited, or I'm treated a little bit differently, and I just find that fascinating. But it's part of the work.
What has been your biggest lesson, that you didn't think that you were going to encounter?
As CEO? Lessons, understanding the business, I don't think anything surprised me. But I will say, I have traveled to DC a lot. And I meet with Congress and senators. And so for me, that was different because I'd never done that before. And so one of the aha moments for me was, I was prepared. I'm going to talk about this. And then going into a room and then a clock giving you 15 minutes to talk about what I was planning on talking for half an hour, right? And so to me, that was a quick, okay, I need to adjust. I need to, in my brain, identify the top 3 things I want to talk about, right? And so lessons that I've learned, because they're all different, different circumstances, or, you're expecting a meeting where they're inviting you, but you're meeting in the hallway where everybody's passing by because there's no room and the time is important, right? And so those are some of the things that I wasn't used to, but you adapt and you move on and you identify key items that are important and ways to communicate it that are layman's terms so people understand what you need, because we're a very complex organization, and sometimes some of the programming and things we do gets lost in the messaging, and so it's really honing in on what that looks like.
Right. From the beginning we started CPLC, you were very engaged in visiting, making sure that your teams visited the sites. So there's not just being behind the computer, but being able to see, engage with our staff that provide direct services, and then many times being able to then see our clients. And till this day, you visit sites throughout the 7 states that we provide services currently. And then very often we see you at events at Casa Primavera dancing with our seniors. How does it make you feel? Then we have Esperanza Awards where we recognize the teachers, and we see you there as well, that you make it a point to be there present when our clients are being recognized, when you learn their stories, and of course our staff as well. How does that make you feel when you know families are being helped?
Well, it's very important to be being present. I grew up in LA, and some of the services that CPLC provides are services that we sought for. I remember as a child, we used to go and get summer
Summer programs.
the summer program. So we used to line up outside a church that was close to our house, and we used to participate in programs that were led by local organization that did a lot of community service. So like after school programs that I used to remember, like, man, it's a lot of money to pay. But, it's like back then it was, but I used to think like, man, this is expensive. My parents can't afford it. And then married, when I was married, my husband and I needed assistance with immigration. My husband is born in Mexico, and so we needed immigration services. And so we sought immigration services from a local nonprofit that provided those services in LA. And so being able to relate to the services. I have aging parents, and so I love going to the program and seeing our community engaged in just fun activities. It's really important to me. Our Christmas event, seeing the kids lining up for toys. I recall as a kid, my dad worked for a hardware store, and the employees, my dad used to dress up as Santa Claus sometimes, and they give out toys in the community. They were like the CPLC in the neighborhood I grew up in, and so just seeing the smiles on kids' faces and just seeing the pride that our staff take, like the pride that they have in serving and making sure that communities and the people that come to their centers are helped, I think is very important. To me, it's just seeing that the work that we do is impacting in a positive way, I think says a lot. And we couldn't do it without staff that are dedicated, that are experts in their areas, and they're committed to making sure that people are served in a dignified way and that they're getting the services that they need. And if we can't provide those services, that they're referred to other organizations that can provide services.
That is very, very good point. I think that, as Maria mentioned, I feel like you're such a personable CEO. I think that whenever people think CEO, it's like, oh, no, you have to sit up straight and hello, how are you? And that's where conversation ends. But I think that it's super sweet that I think as an employee, we get to talk to you oh, how are you? And, seem like, I feel like it's a good way that everybody's oh, I didn't Alicia doesn't seem like a CEO in that sense, very personable. And I think that it makes working for an organization like this a little extra sweet, because that you're not just giving back to the community, but that your CEO is very much in the community and everything. What is maybe out of all the events that you've gone to, or is there one that you kind of have stuck with you throughout these years, even from when you first started from CPLC?
I mean, there's so many, and I mean, they're all different, right? But they're close to my heart. I'd say the one that I just love attending is De Colores, Mother's Day celebration, and De Colores has been around for I want to say maybe 40 years.
Yeah, so we just celebrated for you.
De Colores is a shelter for victims of domestic violence, and I remember hearing about De Colores before I even came to CPLC. My sister works for DES, and at the time she used to manage different contracts, and one of the contracts she managed was for the shelters, and so she would audit De Colores. And I remember she'd always talk about this De Colores this. I met a person, and she was very engaged, and the stories for her just were very impactful, right? And so I learned about De Colores through her, and I remember when I was looking at moving out here, I told her, hey, if you hear of an organization looking for an accountant, let me know. And so she asked, and De Colores, CPLC, was looking for someone. And that's how I ended up here at CPLC, through De Colores. And so De Colores is a beautiful place. I love hearing the song De Colores in Spanish, and just being engaged in that program. But, I love the senior center. I love visiting our Head Start sites and the different locations, just seeing the kids, from, babies in diapers up until right before they start school. That reminds me of my grandson, right? And just seeing the love that our teachers and our staff give them. I mean, it's just very, very touching because they treat the children like we do at home, right? Like they're like our family. And just, I mean, everything, graduations, I just love engaging and seeing people. It's like family. It's like when you get together, you see family, you're just excited to see everybody. So I get happy.
They're fun events for
Yes.
sure. We may make it a point to be there also. Latinas CEOs is a very, very exclusive group that shouldn't be. I mean, it probably it's less than 5% according to some research in the United States that Latinas we see in leadership positions. In nonprofits, we see women leaders across the country as well, but traditionally has a stereotype that they focus exclusively on one area and they're not a full-rounded leader. How has your financial experience strengthened your understanding of how to run a nonprofit?
So that's helped a lot in my experience, working in the for-profit industry and then coming to the nonprofit. I remember when I first applied, my boss, I can't remember, she was interviewing me and I said, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know nonprofit accounting. And I remember at the time she says, well, it's the same thing. It's just numbers. Don't even think of it. I'm like, oh, okay, they're just numbers, right? And as I engaged more and understood the business, right, it's a business. And so just understanding how to manage the different aspects of funding sources, where does the money come from? How's it spent? Managing the contracts, reporting, right? So that's just the like running a regular business. CPLC is not a regular business because we're very complicated, and it took me years to really understand. I want to say it took me about a year to understand just the works of this department, this subsidiary, and how it all rolls up, right?
And that's when you started your initial role at CPLC.
Yes, my initial role at CPLC was as an accounting manager. And, it was very complicated, but it's like a big puzzle. And for me, that was very, I think, part of my, just the way I grew up. I like saying that I'm a metiche, so I get involved in a bunch of stuff and learn. And, it finally clicked, like the organization, the way it ran, it clicked. But understanding the programming, understanding the operational side of it, and for me, translated to something that I already knew, right? Mm-hmm. So working in the hotel industry, there's different departments. I kind of framed everything or put everything in boxes based on how I understood it. That really helped me understand the operational piece. But as CEO, it's really helped because typically, people tend to focus more on the program and not on the back office or the finances, right? And so, I've heard often is no money, no mission, right? You can't provide services if there's no money. And so it's really managing through understanding finance, but also understanding strategy, how to motivate individuals, right? How do we move in different areas? How do we stop doing certain things, right? That's really hard. You've been doing a program for so many years, but at some point, it's not working out, so you need to stop. You're running a business, and so I think one of the lessons learned is, as CEO, I mean, you have to make the tough decisions in adjusting, refocusing in different areas, and then growing in others, and then moving forward.
Because CPLC has for-profit entities, the economic development arm that helps also sustain social services areas. So that involves a lot of economic development projects and then lending and then other aspects of it. Was that then part of the puzzle that you needed to make sure you understand in early days, and how is it now?
Yes, so that was a complicated puzzle because some pieces were bigger than those. I'm just kidding. But yes, understanding how the for-profit fed the nonprofit, and going into when I became CFO, I separated the accounting, or I split the accounting so that was the area that I managed. And so I separated it to an area where You have the for-profit accounting. You're focused on the for-profit, or let's just say cash-generating entities. In one area, you had your contracts in another, and then operational side in the other, so which is the processing of payroll, AP, all that good stuff. And so really understanding how it all rolled up and tied together was key in really understanding how to operationalize this organization, right? How to lead it. And then there's so many other things, right? The operational, you have, your insurance, right? We have to understand that we need insurance for our properties. We need insurance, healthcare insurance. These are all things that we negotiate that, you look at businesses and you think, oh, it just happens. But no, we're really looking at different ways where we could save dollars and provide the best, health insurance that we could possibly provide, other amenities or resources that we could provide to staff that are part of the revenue that we generate, that we offset to provide resources to the nonprofit area that needs it, and also to help our staff with additional resources, right? So healthcare, tuition reimbursement, other ways where we can give back to our employees through some of the benefits that we've created.
And all that background, all that process that comes to the administration offices helps then in turn provide clear and transparent reporting. So then audits can be performed. How many does CPLC, is it 100 a year?
I feel like we're being audited every week. We manage many contracts, different sources, audit. We have our main audit, which is a financial audit. And then typically we have one or two single audits because of the federal contracts that we have. Mm-hmm. So it's just in-depth review. We pride ourselves on clean audits. We are very transparent, and our reporting is good. Our financials are, they're transparent. They're posted. Anybody can see them, right? And so we pride ourselves in making sure that we are providing the most accurate reporting to our funding sources. That is an area that, if you don't have clean audits, people aren't going to fund you, right? And so for us, it's very important that our back office and our reporting is provided and done accurately.
That's right. Who has been your biggest supporter throughout your journey, you felt, throughout the last 3 years, especially with the Bing's transformation in journey? I know there's been different individuals that have played different roles during the transition, perhaps, and then eventually throughout.
You have to give credit to my husband, because Jorge,
yes,
he's a fighter. He's there. He's been a great supporter and has helped. I have aging parents, so he's been helping with my parents as well, my kids. At work, I'd say all of our leadership, everybody's been very supportive. They guide me. Sometimes my hair may be out of place or something. Y no me dicen que me veo greñuda, but they come and they fix it. I may say something that doesn't sound right, and then they pull me aside like, hey, maybe this sounds a little bit better, right? So I think in the transition, right, because, I don't think anybody's born knowing what to do, right? You're learning. I'm constantly learning and redeveloping. And so I think people just genuinely at CPLC mean well. And I think they are going to support a leader that means well for the organization and for the community. And so I think for me, I really leaned on my team and their teams, right, in order to get CPLC in a place that it needs to be at, right? Whatever that means during the time and place throughout the different years.
Mm-hmm. And obviously being a CEO is very, very high pressure. How do you kind of decompress, kind of like escape the little bubble of this big role?
I have a couch at home that I what do you call it? Reupholstered twice. It's very big, and I decompress when I get home. I curl up in this chair and I read. I I look at my phone, which, I mean, there's not a lot of time for that. But that's one thing I do. I have a grandson. My grandson's going to be 4 years old, and I try to spend as much time as I possibly can with him. And then I like to be home. There's times where I don't leave the house. If I have a weekend off and I'm not traveling, I am home. And just, I like being home and just doing things, right? I don't know, laundry, whatever it is. That's my decompressing.
You inherit an organization right of a pandemic, a lot of stressors. So you inherited nearly 2,000 staff that were going through and were the first responders to the need, and so that carries on weight. Then they also deal with a lot of ever-changing situations in the communities that they serve and the clients. So there is a lot of emotion invested in social workers and other front staff that need to be ready to support the community every day. One thing that it's important for you is for them to also have fun.
Yeah.
Why do you push that so much?
I love to laugh, and I think, part of my distressors is watching a fun movie or just laughing. I mean, I laugh at stuff that people look at me like, I can't believe she's laughing at that, but I laugh. And I laugh, like, I don't know if I can describe it, but it's a laugh that like comes from my gut all the way out, right? And so for me, laughter brings joy, it brings calmness, right? And I notice that I laugh a lot when I'm with people that I enjoy being around. Work, I mean, it's stressful, but I enjoy the people that we're around, right? And so I encourage people to have fun. I encourage people to take their time off. Those are things that we do in order to, and everybody has their way of de-stressing, right? Mine is the couch, staying home in my pajamas, my grandson, and then occasionally like traveling, right? But I travel so much with work. But others, I mean, it's all different, right? And it's whatever makes you feel comfortable and brings you joy. And I think laughing, I mean, it's not going to hurt anybody, right? I think it makes people feel good, and I notice people laugh more when they're together, they're enjoying themselves, and the work may be super hard, but they find some joy. They find something funny to laugh about, not laugh at, but laugh about, and I think that's important.
It's interesting how sometimes people need permission to give themselves time to enjoy and relax and have fun.
Yeah, I think I think it starts from the top, right? If I'm always working, it's going to be hard for my staff to feel like, well, I can't take time off, right? And so I've really stressed, like, we need to model the behavior we want. And so, I mean, we provide really good benefits. There's a lot of time that is allowed depending on the years of employment at CPLC. And so people should take their time. People should be able to spend time with their families and do things that make them happy.
Definitely. I know a little side story, funny story. I remember it was not that long ago. I was walking out of the office, and then I see two people in this truck like laughing. And I was like, I wonder who it is, whatever. And I go back, and I was like, I just got curious. I got chismosa. I turned around, and it was Jose and Alicia. And then I was like, oh, like, it seems like I could go say hi, because, sometimes you don't want to interrupt, like, if it's a serious conversation.
So Jose is another executive at Chicanos Palacios.
Yes, who we got to have here.
A former guest of Empodérate, yes.
Yes, and so I think it was just really funny that, like, I just got to chit-chat with you guys, and we're talking about my ballet folklorica. I was like, oh, for adults. And you're like, oh, no, pero yo no, or whatever. And I think it was just a really funny
join in
story.
the laugh.
Yeah, join in the laugh.
You have to. You have to.
Yes, just today she started with a story about curling.
My eyelashes.
Now I have to tell the story.
Oh, I have to tell the story. I was sharing earlier that we're talking about makeup because the two women in front of me
Thank you.
look amazing. And I was sharing that something personal about me. I put my makeup on in my car, and so I get to work. I get there a little early, or whatever, and there's always enough time to put makeup on in my car, right? I don't know why I can't do it at home, but anyways. So I was putting on my makeup, and I didn't finish, and I ran into my office. And, I was finishing putting it on, and I think it was about to I was curling my eyelash, and someone walked in, and I turned, but my eyelashes stayed. So anyways, my whole eyelashes stayed on the eyelash curler. So I don't curl my eyelashes anymore. But anyways,
that's the moral of the story.
Yeah, it's a moral of the story. Don't curl your eyelashes.
You could do your makeup in the car. Just
don't curl your eyelashes, or don't turn when somebody's walking in. So.
And so do you have a little, kind of, to wrap it up, piece of advice that you would have wanted to tell, I don't know, like 20 years ago, Alicia?
20 years ago, Alicia, I just started at CPLC. I didn't know much about CPLC. I was actually thinking of leaving. Just advice, hang in there. It was really tough times. In the nonprofit world, there's a lot of ups and downs, right? Funding, personnel, whatever. And I think when I started, the organization was going through a lot of transition. And so it was very difficult. And it was like, I don't even need to be here. It was kind of that mentality, right? And then I started learning about the work that the organization did. And like a metiche, I started volunteering and learning more. And, I felt like this was a place for me to be at. But 20 years ago, more, hanging in there, asking the right questions. I'm really good at following my gut. And so leaning into people that I trusted more, and then staying away from those that I didn't. So that's very key for me. So, your gut, your instincts know, where you feel safe and where you don't, in every aspect of your career. If you were asking me younger, I was always afraid of stuff. I was like I like saying that I was a worrier, not warrior. I was always worried about something. And just knowing that, you don't have to worry about stuff. Things are going to pass, and you're going to look back at things and think like that thing, like I was worried or stressed about that. For me, if I knew that back then, I'd worry less and focus on the moment and really, furthering my career. I been reflecting on my career, and I feel like I evolved later in life. And I think had I focused more on career earlier, I think I would have been in a different role, or maybe been a CEO earlier in life. But different things happen. Your mental state and where you feel comfortable is an area that you just need to focus and lean in on. I always like telling people. I just shared this recently. Is always treat people with respect, because you never know who your next boss is gonna be. So I like saying that because it happens at all levels. It happens in your career or with the vendor that you're dealing with. Somebody that you're negotiating with. And, they're going to be in a position that they have the upper hand, and depending on how you treated them, depends on what the outcome's going to be, right? So I'm big on that.
Have you thought about legacy?
For me, legacy means so many different things, right? For me, it's not about, it's like, okay, legacy could be a name on a building. It could be, I don't know. For me, it's not about me. For me, I think, I say I started late in my career, but I'm early in the career. I don't know if that makes sense. And so I'm not even thinking about my legacy. What I do want, though, is to leave CPLC in a better place that I found it in. And so for me, it's about the work, and it's about making sure that the organization continues another 60 years or longer.
Thank you so much, Alicia. It's always a pleasure. I know you're busy. You travel all the time. You visit our offices in California, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, now Utah, and sometimes also in New York City and Chicago. And yet you're here today at Avance High School, our new branded cite another testament that you are on site visiting our staff. So I appreciate your support, and we are so happy to celebrate our 3rd year here with you today.
Thank you, and I'm happy to celebrate with you also. Muchísimas gracias.
Yay,
Gracias
thank
a
you.
ti. Nos vemos.
Bye-bye.
La próxima.